Now the next thing we want to do is to implement a simple design for a dashboard. So for that, we start by creating a dashboard file under screens. To kickstart our dashboard component, let's copy the content of the login file. Back in the dashboard component, we paste what we copied. Now we can change the name of the component. We change it from login to dashboard. Login to dashboard. Now to be able to see the output of this page, we go back to our app.js once again and import the dashboard. Use Ctrl D to select all of them and then retype the dashboard. Now we go back to our dashboard file to continue. For the dashboard, we want to implement a two-layered background. So in addition to the background that we have, we want to create another background which only covers the top part. So for that, we'll create another view. And actually, we'll not need any of the content of the main container now. So let's get rid of all of them. Now we need to bring in styled components, and we can get it from the main container file. So we can copy the styled view and everything above here and paste it. No, dashboard instead. Dashboard. So over here, we paste it. Now we have the colors already, so we get rid of that. Now for the view that we want to create, we'll call it top background. And for this, we want to clear all the properties with the exception of the background color. For the background color, we want to set the value to dark gray. For the dark gray, we need to take it from our colors. Now we seem to have a problem with one of the imports. I think it's this one. So we have to change the path. We have to precede the shed with the components. And we are good. Now let's put the top background in the main container so that we see our progress. So we copy the component name and in the main container we paste it. We don't have any children, so we just close it using the first tag. Back at the top, we continue with the top background. Now give it a weight of 100%. And also we want to give it a height which is a proportion of the screen height. So to be able to do that, we bring our screen height from the shared component. We want this to be 30% of the screen height, so we multiply by 0.3. And then we follow it with the pixels. Now I want to give this a border radius of 30 pixels. And for it to get out of the way of our content, we want to position it to be absolute. And also, to be sure that the top of this container will be out of the way of our screen, we'll give it a top property of negative 30 pixels. Now we see that we're giving it a weight of 100%, but actually, it is not taking up the full weight of the screen. That is because our main container over here has some padding around its content. So using the style property, we want to get rid of the padding at the sides. The first thing we'll do is to set the padding top to 0. Secondly, we want to set the padding at the left to 0 as well. And lastly, we set the padding at the right to 0. and this should make our background fill the entire width. Now for the actual content that will be on this page, we'll wrap them with another main container, and it will be nested in this main container. So just below the top background, we'll have another main container, and inside this will be our content. But we can see that our top background is no more, and that's because of the main container. So to take care of this, we will set the background color to transparent, and we'll do that through the style property. And this should ensure that we see our background. Now the first thing we want to put here is a big text component. So let's bring in the big text component. So in the main container, we put the big text. For the value, we just say hello world. That is, we are welcoming our user. Let's give it some extra styles. First, we want to give it a margin at the bottom of 25 pixels. Also, we want to give it a font weight of bold. And that should do. Right after this, we want to display some cards over here. So for the design of the cards, we need to create some extra components. So under the components directory, we want to create a directory for cards. The name of the first component to be info card. For the content, let's start with the main container. So we copy all the content here, and then in the info card, we paste it there. Now we first change the name of the component to info card. After that, we'll change the name of our main component. Instead of styled view, we'll call it card view. So we can use Ctrl D to select all of them at once. Now we can get rid of all the styles and style it differently. The first property that we want is the flex direction. And we want to set the value to row. Secondly, we want to give it a height. And this height will be a fraction of our screen. We want it to be 20% of our screen, so we multiply it by 0.2. And then we follow it with the pixels. Now we don't have this here, so we need to import it from the shared file. We can actually replace the one here with it. Next, we want to give it a background color of primary. And also we want to give it a border width of 2 pixels. To ensure that we can monitor the progress, let's go to our dashboard and display this info card. So back on our dashboard, we import the info card. And then below our big text, we display the info card. We'll come back later to pass some values to it, but for now we'll leave it like this. Now let's go back to the info card. The next property we want to give it is a border color of secondary. And for this as well, we need to bring it from the colors. Next, we'll give it a padding of 20 pixels. And also we want the edges to be curved a bit, so we give it a border radius. We'll set this to 15 pixels. Now if any content overflows, we want to hide it. So we use the overflow property. Now we want to give the component a bit of elevation or border shadow. So in this case, we'll do the same thing that we did for the modal. So let's go into our message modal and copy that property. So on the modal page, we scroll to our modal view and then we copy from the elevation to the shadow radius. Now back in the info card file, we paste it. We don't have the black color here, so we import it from our colors. And we can see that it's a bit elevated. We can get rid of the elevation and see the difference. Once we bring back the elevation, we see that we have some form of shadow. Now for the content of the card, we want to put it into two halves, a left and a right one. So for that, we'll create a card section component for it. This will be based on a view as well. For this, we want to justify the content to have space between them. And secondly, we want to align the items to the start of the section, so we use the flex start property. Now we can use this in the card view. So to do that, we get rid of the children. Since we want two of this, we can copy and paste it. For the first section, we want it to take a width of 60%, so we apply it through the style property. And it will be 40% for the other one, so we can copy and paste it. Now inside the first section, we'll make use of some regular and small text. So first, let's import the regular text. Inside this, we put the regular text. For the content, we want to display balance. For this, we want to style it to be bold, so we apply a font to its property. Also, we want to display another regular text, so we copy and paste it. For this one, the value will be an amount, so we can put any random figure here. But for this, we want to increase the font size a bit to 25 pixels. For the last thing we want to display here, we need the small text. So below the regular text, we display the small text. And for this, we'll put something like a date. Now for the other card section, we want to display an icon. So once again, we will need our material community icons. I don't think we have it here, so we need to import it from one of the files. We can get it from the style text input. So we can copy and go back to the info card, and then we can paste it at the top. In between the card section, we'll put the material community icons. For the name of the icon, we can use chart arc for now. And also for the size, we want it to be a fraction of the screen height. So we can pass the size property and copy the value from up here. For this, we want it to be 13% of the screen height, so that will be 0.13. And also for the color, we want to use the accent color. I don't think we have it here, so we need to add it to our colors. Now this completes the initial look of our card, but to make this reusable, we need to accept all these values as properties. So back on the dashboard, let's pass some properties to the info card. So for the icon of the card, we want to pass it through the icon property. So for this one, let's pass a name of, let's say, chart timeline variant. Secondly, we want to pass the title of the card. And the title refers to the value we have here. And for this, we'll call it balance. Also, we want to give it a value. And let's put a random value here. We can just put what we have here. After that, let's pass a date for the small text we have here. And for this as well, I'll pass the exact same date. I want to display more than one of these, and the easiest way is to duplicate this. So let's copy and paste it. Now immediately, we see that we need some margin at the bottom. So let's start the top one by giving it a margin at the bottom. We'll give it a margin of 25 pixels. Now for the second one, we'll change the icon to chart arc. And also for the title, let's change it to savings. And for the balance, let's change it to something else. Also for the date, let's change it to a statement like last 6 months. Now these values are not displaying yet, so let's go to the info card and make the adjustments. So over here, we start by destructuring the values. The first property is the icon. Secondly, we take in the title, and then the value, and then the date. Also, we can spread the other props. Now for the card view over here, I don't want it to receive all the props, so I can target only the style props and pass it to it. So I'll do that through the style property. And then in here, I'll have an object. And then I'll spread the props.style. Now everything here will stay the same, but for the regular text, we'll first change the balance here to the title. Also for the second regular text, we'll change the value here to the value that we received. Now for the small text, we'll change the content to the date. And after that, we'll change the name of the icon to the icon. Now for the color over here, if we want, you can accept custom colors for our icons. So in here, we'll make a check for color. If we receive the color property, we want to return the color. Otherwise, we return our accent color. Now we add the color to the props that we destructured. Now we've nailed the look of the card that we wanted. So at the top, let's get rid of anything that we didn't use. And it looks like we used everything here. So now we go back to the dashboard. On the dashboard as well, we are good, and we can go to the top and clear the unused code. For instance, we don't need the handle login here. And also, we don't need these states. Also over here, we don't need all these components. And also, we don't need the primary color. And then the activity indicator and the formic. Also from React, we don't need the state. Then our dashboard is good. Now the next thing we want to do is to add headers to the pages. And to be able to do that, we want to use the React navigation package. So we need to make some installations. To get the names of the packages we need to install, we can visit the React navigation website. So we can just search for React navigation. We then open the first link, and then we see that we are supposed to install React Navigation Native. You can use either npm or yarn. So I'll copy this and go to my command line. So my command line, I'll first create my server by hitting Ctrl+C. Once that is done, I can then paste my command. This will take a while and you can pause the video till it's done. Once the installation is done, we need to install some more packages. So we go back to the website. Over here, we see that if you are using Expo, we need to make these installations. And also if you are using the bare React Native, you need to make these installations as well. So since I'm on Expo, I'll copy these ones. And then back on the command line, I'll paste it. With that done, we need something else from React Navigation. That is the Stack Navigator. So for that, we can search for the Stack Navigator to get the exact installation command. So we open the first link. Now we scroll down till we see the installation command, which is the React Navigation Stack, which we'll then copy. Now back on the command line, we paste this to be installed. With this done, we need to install one last component. So back on the website, we see that we need to install this if you're on Expo, and also install this if you're on bare React Native. So we copy this command, and then we paste it on our command line to be installed. Once that is done, we can start our server again. When it opens, we hit D to open it in the browser. Now in the browser, I can switch the connection mode to local and I can open the app once again on my emulator. Now the next thing we need to do is to set up a navigator for our screens. So for this, we'll create a directory and call it navigators. This will be in the root directory and not under component. So over here, we create a new folder and call it navigators. We'll create a file under navigators and call it the root stack. For this as well, we can copy the content of our main container. And then back in our root stack, we'll paste it. Now we change the name of the component and the export. We change this to root stack. Now at the top, we need to make some imports from React Navigation. The first one is the navigation container. We'll get this one from @React Navigation/native. Also, we need a create stack navigator function. And that's from React Navigation stack. Over here in this file, we'll not need the view, so we can get rid of it. And also for the root stack, we get rid of the props. Now the main thing we return here is the navigation container. So we can copy the name and then replace the styled view with it. Then for the children, we get rid of it. Now in between the navigation container will be the stack of our screens. So to see the output of this, let's go to the app file and then import the root stack. So in the app file, instead of the dashboard, we import the root stack. But for this, it won't be from the screens but the navigators. And also in the return, we use the root stack. Now going back to the root stack, we make use of the create stack navigator to create a stack. So we just call the function. Now inside the navigation container, we'll put stack.navigator. In this stack.navigator, we'll have stack.screen components. The first screen will be our login screen, so we import it from our screens. So for that, we set the name of the screen to login. And also we pass the login screen to the component. With this done, when we refresh the app, you should see the login screen. So I'll click on it and press Alt twice to refresh it. Now the server is not happy about something, and I think it's because of the import we have over here. For the status bar height, we will not need it, but for the colors we will need it, so we adjust the path. With that done, we can press on the button here to reload it. And now we are sent to the login page. Now at the top, we see that we have this new header which looks a bit ugly, so let's style it. For the styling, we go to the stack.navigator and pass the screen options property. For this, we'll first change the header tint color to accent. This will be the color of the content of the header. For this, we don't have it here, so we bring it from our colors. Also, we want to pass some style to the header itself, so we use header style. This will be an object, and the first property will change its height. For this, we'll change it to 100. Secondly, we want to change the background color. And we'll set this to our secondary color. We don't have it here, so we bring it from our colors. Next, there is a border at the bottom here, so we want to get rid of it. To do that, we will set the border bottom width to 0. Also want to set the shadow color to transparent. And also want to set the shadow opacity to 0. And lastly, we set the elevation to 0. All these properties will ensure that on both iOS and Android, we don't have the border at the bottom. Now I want to align the header text here to the content of our page, so I'll make use of the header left container style. This will be an object as well, and I'll give it a padding left of 10. Also, for some of the pages, we'll put something on the right here, and we want to adjust the padding over there. So for that, we can copy and paste it. And this will be header right container style. For that, we want to set the padding to 25. And then the property name will be padding right. Now to always ensure that we come to the login page when we start the app, we will set an initial route name property, and that will be outside the screen options. For that, we'll set it to login. Now we want to add our other screens to the stack. So at the top, let's import all the screens that we have. So after the login, we bring in the sign up. And after that, we bring in email verification. After that, we have the forgot password. And then we have the password reset, or the reset password. After that as well, we have the dashboard. So in the Stack Navigator, we want to copy and paste this. We change the second one to sign up, and the component as well to sign up. For the next one, we change it to email verification. And the component to email verification. For the others, I'll just copy and paste the names. So for forgot password, I'll copy the name and then I'll replace the login with forgot password. And also I'll copy reset password and I'll replace the login here with reset password. And lastly, I'll copy the dashboard and replace the login here with dashboard. Now let's go to one of the screens with two words in the name and see something. So for example, let's go to the email verification page. To do that, I'll replace the initial route name with email verification. If it doesn't change, you need to refresh the app. Over here in the title, we see that we have email verification together, which is not something that we want. So for the screens with double words in the name, we want to apply an options property. So for the email verification screen, we pass the options property. And in the options, we use the header title to change the title. For this, we'll copy the name and then we space it out. And it looks better now. So we copy these whole options and apply it to the others. So for this, we copy forgot password and then space it out. And then we'll do same for the reset password. We copy the options and then paste it here. Yeah, just like so. Now we can save it and then replace the initial route name with the login. Now when you look at the login page, we see that we have a bit of excess padding at the top. We put there this padding because initially we didn't have the header and we didn't want our content to enter the status bar. So now that we have the header, we can get rid of the padding. So to do that, we go to our main container, which we used for all the pages. So over here, we keep the 25 pixels padding and then we get rid of the excess padding at the top over here. Now it should look fine on all the other pages. And then once again, we can get rid of the status bar height over here. Now the next thing we want to do is to add a profile section. And for this, we'll make use of a modal. Now this profile section will only be available on the dashboard. So let's go to our row stack and make sure that we can see the dashboard. So the initial route name, we'll change it to dashboard. And then we can refresh the app. Now to trigger the modal, we will need a button that we want to put at the right side of our header. So for that, we'll go under our buttons and I'll create another button and call it avatar. For the component, we can start by copying our main container. Pasting the content, we want to change the name of the components to avatar. Now for this, we want to return a small view that is pressable. So for that, we'll change the style view here to a touchable opacity. And then for the properties, we can get rid of the flex and the padding. For the background color, it will still be primary. and want to give it a flex direction of column. Also want to give it a height and a width of 45 pixels. Now to be able to see our avatar even before we complete it, let's go to our root stack. In the root stack, we import our avatar. Now we copy the header style here, and then we scroll till we see the dashboard screen. For the dashboard screen, I also pass the options property. And as one of the options, I'll paste the header style I just copied. Now over here, I want to change the background color to match the background we have over here. And this color is our dark gray color. So at the top, we ensure that we bring in the dark gray color from our colors. Now it's looking a lot better. Now for the avatar that we are implementing, we want to call a header right property. And for this, we'll pass it a function. And for the return value of the function, we'll give it the avatar. Now we can see the initial look of the avatar at the right side. So we can save this and then go back to our avatar implementation. Now back in the styled view, we give our avatar a border radius of 15 pixels. Also, we want to justify its content to the center. And also want to align the items in it to the center. Now we want to give this a thin border, just like we did for our cards. So for this, we'll give it a border width of 2 pixels. And also for the border color, we'll change it to secondary. We'll get this secondary color from our colors. Now for the content of this view, we want to bring in our icon once again. And for that, we can get it from our text input. And then we can go back to our avatar and then paste it. So we copy the name of the material community icon and then replace the child with it. The name of the icon we want is account. And for this, we'll give it a size of 35. For the color, we'll change it to our accent color. We'll get the accent color from our colors. Now this is a pressable, and we press on it. We want to toggle a modal to be shown, and that will be a profile modal. So for that, it will be very similar to our message modal that we have. So in the modals directory, let's create a file for profile modal. And then for the content, we want to copy the content of the message modal. The first change we make is to change the name of the modal to profile modal. Now for the modal pressable container and the modal view here, we don't want to declare them again, but just import them from the message modal. So we import them as modal view, and then we copy the name of the other one, all from the message modal. Now you can get rid of them. but I'm not sure we exported them from the message modal. So let's go there and ensure that. So we see that we didn't export them, so we just precede each one of them with export. And we should be fine in the profile modal. Now to be able to see this modal, let's go to the avatar file and import the profile modal. Now we want to put this profile modal in the same fragment as the styled view here. Now as you can see, the modal is being displayed. Now for managing the visibility of the modal, we want to do something similar to the email verification page. So let's go there and copy some of the values. So on the email verification page, we scroll to where we have the properties for our modal. We copy all of this and then we paste it in our file. So we copy this and then we go back to our avatar. And in the avatar component, we paste this. Actually, we won't use all of them, so we come back to clear some of it. But first, let's import the use state from React. Now we go back to the email verification page. This time around, we copy the button handler and the show modal. And then back on the avatar page, we paste it. Now from the modal properties, we only want to use the modal visible and header text, so we can get rid of the rest. Also for the button here, we want to use it for logout, so we create another state for logging out. So we can just copy and paste this. And then we change the value to logging out. And then this one will set logging out. For the initial value, we set it to false. Now for the button handler here, we will change it to onLogout. And once we enter the function, the first thing we want to do is to set logging out to true. Also, we can make this an async function. And then once we set logging out to true, we want to clear our credentials. And then once we are done with that, we want to set logging out to false. And then at this point, we can hide the modal and then move to the login page. So we don't need all these things that we have here. Now for the show modal function we have over here, I want to change it to show profile. The only thing we want to accept is a user. So we can get rid of all the other properties. And then for the value of the user, that will be our header text. So we change the header text to user. Then we get rid of everything and then keep the set modal visible. Let's make this show profile modal. Now let's make some changes on the profile modal. The first thing we want to do is that we want to change the icon at the top here. The icon we want to use is the account icon. And then for the color, we want to change it to the accent color. We don't have it here, so we bring it in. And for the size, we want to change it to 55 pixels. Now I want to wrap this thing with a container, and that will be similar to what we did for the avatar. So I'll go to the avatar file and copy the view. Yeah, this view. So I come back to the profile modal and paste this. Now we don't want this to be attachable again, so we change it to view. And also for the secondary color, we don't have it here, so we add it to our colors. Now wrap this styled view around our icon. So we cut the material icon and then we paste it in between it. Now we want to increase the size of the view, so we change the height to 65 pixels. And then the width to 65 as well. And it is looking a lot better now. Now for the big text that we have over here, everything will stay the same, and we want to increase the margin vertical to 20. For the regular text, we will not need it. And for the button, we want to make it two variants. The first one will be the regular button, and the other one will be when we click on it and it will display an activity indicator. So to be able to determine that, we will take in the login out value as a property. So we first check for when logging out is false. In that case, we'll just return our regular button. So I'll copy the whole line here. Then I'll paste it here. So in this case, we'll change the content of it to just log out. For the second situation, we can copy and paste this. And then we can get rid of the other pattern. Now for the second situation, the content will be an activity indicator. So let's import that from React Native. So in addition to the modal, we import activity indicator. And then we copy the name. And then we can use it in the button. For this, we'll give it a size of small. And then for the color, we set it to our primary color. Let's refresh it and see the output of it. The primary here should be a variable and not a string. I'm sure you caught it before I did. Now it is looking as we want it to look. Now we'll get rid of this onPress attribute and replace it with the disabled. For this, we'll set the value as true. Once we've done that, we can get rid of the negation here, and only one button should be displayed. Now visiting the component props, we can get rid of all the properties that we didn't use. And at the top as well, we can get rid of anything that we didn't use. So we get rid of the regular text and also the black, success and fill colors. Now back in the avatar file, we want to pass our modal properties to the modal. So we start with the modal visible. And we pass it to the modal visible state. Secondly, we pass it the header text. And that will be the header text. Next, we pass the button handler. And over here, the value will be the onLogout function. So we can just copy the name. And then lastly, we want to pass the login out value. Now I just noticed something. For our modals, when we click on the backdrop, the button handler runs. But in this case, on the profile page, when we click on the backdrop, we don't want the user to be logged out. So we need to create another handler for pressing on the backdrop. So for this one, we can call it hide modal. And then we will receive it from the props. Now back in the avatar, we declare that. All that it will do here is to set the modal visible to false. So we can copy and paste it here. And then we change the value to false. Now we can pass this to the modal. Now at this point, clicking on the button does nothing. So we want to create a handler for it. So for that, we'll target the onPress property. And we'll create a handler for it and call it on avatar press. This will be a function. In this function, what we want to do is that we'll call the show profile method and we'll pass it a user. In this case, we'll just pass it a full name. Now the last thing I want to change here is that for the styled view, I don't want to spread all the props on it. I only want to target a particular one for the icon container, which I'll pass to the style. So we pass the style property. And then from the props, we target the image container style. The image here will refer to our icon. Now with that done, you should be able to see the profile modal by pressing on the profile icon. Now we should go to the top and get rid of any imports that we didn't use. In this case, we don't have any. And also ensure that the situation is the same for the profile modal. And as you can see, we don't have any unused imports.